Hey there. Tonight, you're not just hearing a story, you're living one. You're Robin Hood, not the legend. The man. Cold, hunted, tired, and surrounded by people who expect you to lead. The forest isn't kind. Food is scarce. Trust is thinner than your last arrow. You've made enemies in high places and promises you can't keep. This isn't a tale of glory. It's a slow fight for survival. And honestly, you wouldn't last a day. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and try to stay quiet. The trees are listening, and you're already being followed. The cold is the first thing you feel. Not the pleasant kind that wakes you gently, but the kind that clings. Wet, bone deep, and mean. It creeps in through the threadbare wool of your cloak and settles in your spine. The ground beneath you isn't earth, not really. It's something softer, rotten with moisture. Layers of leaf mold and old pine needles pressed into a paste. Your ribs ache from the way you've curled yourself in the night, trying to keep warm without a fire. Above you, the canvas flap that should have kept the rain out is torn again. You don't remember when it ripped. It just did, sometime between now and the last camp move. Now a steady draft slips through, nudging the back of your neck like an unwelcome hand. You shift, slow, deliberate, because your muscles are stiff and your breath is still shallow. Around you, the world is dim and gray and full of the quiet that only exists just before something goes wrong. You're not alone, of course. Someone else is snoring a few feet to your left. Probably Will. His breathing is rough, wet-sounding, like his lungs are filled with smoke or mold. You'll have to watch that. You lost one man to lung fever last winter, and you swore it wouldn't happen again. But you swear a lot of things. There's movement beyond the edge of the camp. A soft shuffle, the clink of gear, the brush of a branch. Not a threat. Not yet. Probably one of your own relieving himself or checking the perimeter. Still, your hand goes to your belt by reflex. You find the hilt of your knife. Not your sword. That's long gone. Pawned for food or arrows or both months ago. You never told anyone. Let them believe you kept it hidden. Let them believe you still had everything under control. You sit up slowly. Your back protests. Your legs cramp. Your shoulder thumb. The one with the old wound throbs like it's angry at you for still being alive. The morning air tastes like wet bark and smoke that's long since gone cold. You pull your cloak tighter and peer out past the edge of the tarp. The camp is still there, scattered and half visible in the mist. A few low tents, 2 fires reduced to coals, boots left out to dry, stiff and useless. It's all so temporary. Every part of this life looks like it's waiting to be taken away. You told them this forest would protect you, that Sherwood was safe. But trees don't stop arrows, and cold doesn't care about promises. You reach for your boots. They're damp, of course. Everything's damp. You slide them on anyway, wincing as the lining presses against raw spots on your heels. You stand, stretch, and hear the familiar pop of joints that have lived too hard for too long. Another morning. Another promise you can't keep. You scan the tree line just in case. Nothing moves. Not yet. But the birds aren't singing, and that's never a good sign. You walk toward the clearing where the water bucket should be, your feet silent on the wet moss. No one greets you. No one smiles. Just hunched shapes, still pretending to sleep, each of them wondering if today will be the day it all finally ends. You don't know what's coming. But you do know this: the story people tell about you. The outlaw prince, the laughing thief, the green-cloaked savior. He didn't sleep here. He never woke up to this. The fire is little more than a memory now, its glow reduced to tired embers clinging to warmth that doesn't spread. A single blackened pot hangs above it, swaying gently from the makeshift spit, the liquid inside barely bubbling. The smell is thin, mostly steam and smoke, with a hint of meat that's been boiled too many times. What's left are scraps, the last bits of rabbit they managed to trap yesterday. You recognize the shape of a rib floating in the cloudy water, stripped almost clean. There isn't enough to feed a man, let alone the dozen huddled around it. Still, they sit in a loose circle, staring at the pot like it might magically fill itself if they wait long enough. No one speaks. No one moves quickly. Every gesture is deliberate, slow, like they're trying not to wake something worse than hunger. Will is the first to reach forward, ladling out a thin scoop into a cracked wooden bowl. He doesn't look up. His hands are shaking slightly, but not from cold. You can tell. Across from him, Tom still hasn't touched his. He holds the bowl in both hands, staring into it like it might answer a question. His lips move occasionally, silently. Maybe a prayer, maybe just the echo of yesterday's regret. Marion sits near the edge of the circle, her back straight, her eyes sharp. She watches everyone else but doesn't eat. Her bowl is empty. You're not sure if she already had her share or if she gave it away again. She does that. Has for weeks. You want to ask her, but you don't. There's a rule now. Don't talk in the morning unless it's necessary. Words burn more energy than broth. A pair of boots crunch behind you. Lytton, probably, returning from the tree line. He nods once and takes a seat. Not near anyone in particular. Just close enough to feel the warmth of bodies without being part of them. He doesn't ask for food. No one offers. There's a rhythm to this silence. Something practiced. You wonder when it became habit. You remember mornings of bread and laughter, shared wine, bad songs sung too early in the day. Back then, every meal felt like a celebration. Now, even survival tastes like shame. You kneel beside the fire, reach for a ladle, and feel the eyes on you. Quiet, expectant, not jealous, just tired. They don't resent that you'll eat. They resent that they still want you to fix things. The broth is thin, nearly translucent. You drink it straight from the bowl, swallowing without tasting. It fills space more than it feeds. Somewhere behind you, someone coughs, dry and short, but sharp. No one reacts. It's not new, just another crack in the wall that used to be your strength. When the bowl is empty, you don't scrape for more. You set it down carefully, deliberately, like it's a ceremony. No one says thank you. No one asks what happens next. You're their leader, but this morning, leadership just means being the first to pretend you're not hungry. You stare into the dying fire and feel your stomach shift, not from fullness, but from memory, of roasted meat, of stolen feasts, of the way people used to cheer when they saw your face. Now they just wait and hope you still have a plan, even if you don't, especially if you don't. You move away from the fire in silence, stepping carefully across the damp forest floor, past the circle of slow-moving bodies and downed branches. No one looks up. That's part of the routine now. People know to avert their gaze, to give each other space, to pretend privacy still exists out here. You push through a low-hanging cluster of fir limbs, the needles brushing your face with cold indifference, and find a spot just out of sight. Somewhere between two leaning birch trees and a half-rotted stump, You undo the buckle of your belt and exhale through your nose. It's not relief, exactly. It's something duller. You've done this hundreds of times, always facing the trees, always listening more than watching. Because out here, this simple act has rules. You go fast, you stay low, and above all, you don't turn your back on anything for too long. The moment you stop moving, the forest seems to take a breath. You hear it in the leaves overhead, rustling like paper in a trembling hand. Somewhere off to the east, a bird calls once, then goes quiet. That silence always sets your teeth on edge. Then comes the other sound, the one you're always waiting for. A soft crack, barely there, like a twig breaking beneath a careful boot. It could be one of yours. It could be nothing. But your fingers freeze anyway, not out of fear. You're too tired for fear. It's caution now, hardwired into your spine. You finish quickly and step sideways, quietly, adjusting your belt without taking your eyes off the direction of the sound. Nothing moves. The trees are thick there, the brush darker, the kind of dark that might contain a person, or might not. You crouch beside the stump and wait. You don't draw your knife, not yet, but your fingers rest near it, just in case. If someone's watching, they're good, too good. No breathing, no shifting, just the memory of that one sharp sound. You scan for boot prints, for broken moss, for that almost invisible shimmer of oil on leather that betrays a hidden scout. Nothing. But that doesn't mean you're alone. You learned that long ago. You move slowly back toward camp, taking a different route, looping wide, skirting the edge of the path where your own people would never walk. You listen. Still nothing. But it stays with you, the feeling of being seen, not targeted, not hunted, just marked. Like someone somewhere has written your name on a page and underlined it twice. When you return to camp, no one notices, or pretends not to. Will is still hunched over his bowl, poking at whatever's left in it. Marion has shifted closer to the fire but still hasn't eaten. One of the boys, too young, always cold, is rubbing his hands together, trying to chase feeling back into his fingertips. You walk past them without a word, sit on a log, and start checking your boots for thorns. But your eyes keep flicking toward the trees. You know how close someone can get if they move slow enough, if they know what they're doing. The forest doesn't protect you. It hides you, yes, but it hides them too. And you're not the only man out here who's learned how to disappear. The water in the pot has just begun to roll when you strip off your shirt. It peels away from your skin with a faint crackle, stiff from days of sweat and smoke. The fabric is coarse, stained in patches, and crawling with something you try not to look at too closely. You shake it once and a few pale dots scatter down into the dirt. You can't tell if they're dead yet, and you don't care. The pot isn't for soup this time. You reach in and stir the shirt down with a stick, pressing it into the boiling water until the cloth is fully submerged. A faint smell rises almost instantly, rancid wool and skin oil and the sharp, acidic stench of death in miniature. The pot wasn't clean to begin with, and now it's worse. You wrinkle your nose and keep stirring, because this is the only way to make the itching stop. It won't kill all of them, you know that. But even if half of them die, that's half a chance at sleep tonight. You sit beside the pot and watch the steam curl upward. The fire beneath it hisses slightly from leftover dew on the logs. You press your elbows to your knees and rest your head in your hands. You've fought knights, dodged soldiers, burned ledgers in tax halls, and still, the thing that's breaking you is no bigger than a grain of rice. The itching has been driving you mad for days, under your arms, down your spine, around your waistband. At night, it's worst. You wake up scratching, bleeding, teeth clenched so tight your jaw aches in the morning. You tried vinegar once, then ash. Someone suggested goose fat. Nothing worked. But this boiling, at least gives the illusion of doing something. And out here, that's often all you have. Not solutions, just illusions, held together by heat and hope. Marion passes by behind you, not stopping, but glancing once at the pot. She says nothing. She knows what you're doing. She's done it too. You remember the first time she sat cross-legged by the fire, sleeves rolled, scrubbing undergarments in silence while 3 men tried not to stare. Now no one stares. No one cares. The camp is a closed loop of necessities, and modesty was the first thing you lost after food. You stir again. The water is brown now, tinged with something darker. You catch a whiff that makes your stomach turn, a blend of skin, rot, and the ghosts of too many nights in the same clothes. You feel something crawl across your collarbone and slap it without thinking. Just sweat. Maybe. You hope. When the water goes still, you fish the shirt out with the same stick, holding it at arm's length. It sags like a drowned animal, dripping filth onto your boots. You lay it across a flat rock to dry, knowing it'll take hours in this damp air, knowing it'll stink, knowing the lice will come back anyway. But you've done your part. You've tried. And in this world, trying is as close as you get to relief. You wipe your hands on your trousers and stand, shoulders heavy. The fire crackles behind you, uncaring. The woods stretch ahead, always waiting. You pull your cloak tight around your chest, now bare beneath the wool, and pretend you don't feel exposed. Tomorrow, it'll be the socks, or maybe the blanket. You've already boiled everything else. One by one, the layers of comfort vanish. And you're still here, still scratching, still breathing, still pretending that matters. The cough has a rhythm now. It started weak, scattered, a sound lost among the stirring camp, the crackle of wet firewood and boots shifting on cold soil. But now it's settled into something steady, harsh, wet, deep. The kind of cough that makes grown men wince and mothers look away. You know the sound. You've heard it before in alleyways and plague carts, in taverns where men drink through their final winters. But here, it comes from the smallest shape in camp. A boy, curled into himself, knees tight to his chest, threadbare blanket doing little more than collecting the dew that clings to every surface this morning. His back rises with each breath and shudders with each cough, a violent protest from lungs too small for the burden inside them. You hear it again as you tie your boots, and again as you adjust your cloak, and then again, always again. He's not yours. He was never yours. He came with the others, one of the widows from the northern ridge, or maybe left behind in that burned village 2 weeks back. You never asked. That's the rule now. If someone follows, you let them. If they can keep up, they stay. If they can't, they vanish. No names, no promises. But still, he ended up near your sleeping place. The others gave him space. Maybe they thought he'd be safest next to you. Maybe he just crawled there in the night, looking for heat. You didn't push him away, and now you regret that. Not because of the noise, Not because of the discomfort, but because when sickness starts this early in the season, it spreads, and you don't have medicine, you barely have food, and your men are already scared enough. You crouch beside him without a word. His eyes are half open, pupils flickering beneath thin lids. His lips are chapped, skin pale, cheeks flushed with the kind of fever you can see without even touching. But you touch anyway, carefully, the back of your hand against his forehead. It's hot. Too hot. Not the warmth of a healthy body in a cold forest, but the burning weight of something brewing just beneath the skin. You press your hand to his chest, counting the rise and fall. Too fast. Too shallow. Each breath followed by a cough that rakes through his body like a curse. He barely reacts to you, just keeps shivering, just keeps trying to breathe. You don't say his name. You don't know it. And it's better that way. That's what you tell yourself. Better not to get attached. Better to keep moving. Better to let nature choose. You stand again and look around. No one's watching, or they're pretending not to. Everyone hears the cough. Everyone knows what it means, and no one says a word. You wipe your hand on your trousers without thinking, though you know it won't help. If it's in him, it's in the camp now. In the blankets, the bowls, the water. You scan the tree line, not for threats, but for the impossible. A healer, a friendly farm, something you haven't burned yet. But the woods give nothing, only the wind, brushing against your face like a reminder. You kneel one last time and adjust the blanket over the boy's chest. He doesn't move. You murmur something. Not a prayer. Not really. Just sound. And walk away before you start caring more than you should. Behind you, the cough continues, like a metronome, like a drumbeat, like a warning. You find her near the stream, crouched low, scrubbing something in the cold current. A strip of cloth, maybe, though it's hard to tell. Whatever color it once had is long gone, replaced by the grays and browns of forest living. Her sleeves are rolled, her hair tied back in a knot that's half fallen loose. You step carefully, making noise on purpose, because you've learned not to surprise anyone out here. She doesn't look up, just keeps scrubbing, slow and steady, as if the fabric might someday come clean. You wait a moment before speaking, but she breaks the silence first. "He's still coughing," she says, like it's your fault. Maybe it is. Maybe everything is. You nod, though she isn't watching, and crouch beside her. The water is cold. Your knees protest. You're too close, but she doesn't move away. She also doesn't meet your eyes. You ask if she slept. She shrugs. You ask if she's eaten. Another shrug. Her hands are red from the water, knuckles raw, but she doesn't stop. You offer her the last dried apple from your pouch, a shriveled thing, more skin than fruit, but she doesn't take it. "Save it for him," she says. She means the boy, or maybe someone else. It doesn't matter. You tuck it away. You try to make a joke, something small, something from before, when you both used to laugh. She doesn't react, just wrings the cloth out slowly, water dripping from her fingers into the current like tiny knives. You want to ask her where she goes when she stares like that, what she sees that isn't here, but you don't. You already know. She sees the same thing you do, a forest that's too quiet, a camp that's too hungry, a future that isn't coming. You tell her about the sound you heard this morning, the broken branch beyond the ridge. She nods. You tell her you're thinking of moving the camp again. She nods again. You say you're worried, that something feels off, that the air is wrong, that people are watching you like you're still made of answers. She stops scrubbing, sits back on her heels, looks at the water, not at you. Then tell them the truth, she says. Her voice is low, steady, not cruel, just finished. Tell them you're out of answers. Let them decide what to do without you. You wait for more, but there isn't more. She stands slowly, wrings the cloth one last time, and drapes it over a low branch. The wind catches it immediately, like it wants to carry it off. She doesn't wait for you to follow. You watch her walk away, back toward the cluster of tents and smoke. Her steps are silent, measured. She doesn't look back. She hasn't in a long time. You used to know what she was thinking before she said it. Used to feel her breath beside you in the night, like something that made this whole life seem worth the dirt. Now you don't know what she thinks, or wants, or fears. You know only that she's still here. Not with you, not against you, just here. Like the trees, like the cold, like the ache in your shoulder that never goes away. You stand slowly, knees stiff, and glance down at the water. The current carries a bit of foam, a torn leaf, something dark and thin that might be blood. You dip your hands in out of habit, rub them together, and wonder what it would take to wash this whole life away. He stumbles into camp just before midday, though no one saw where he came from. One moment the forest was still, the next it coughed him out like something it couldn't stomach. He's thin, beyond thin. His clothes hang like empty sacks, one sleeve torn away completely, the skin beneath it raw and purple with bruises. His face is swollen on one side, lips split, blood caked across his temple in a dark smear that's long since dried. His breath comes shallow and uneven, like he's forgotten how to take it without pain. The first one to see him is one of the boys. He shouts, then retreats as the man falls to his knees. You reach him in 4 strides. He tries to rise again, but can't. His hands are scraped and shaking. He looks up at you, eyes glassy, and opens his mouth. The first sound is just a dry rasp. The second is your name. You kneel beside him, one hand on his shoulder, and he flinches. His whole body twitches at your touch, like it expects more pain. You speak softly, ask who did this. He tries to answer, but the words catch. He gestures instead, weakly, toward his leg. You follow his hand and see the telltale bruising around his ankle, the blood-crusted welts where rope once bit into skin. They hung him upside down. You've seen it before. It drains the head, disorients the mind, makes strong men weep in less than an hour. And they left him like that long enough to leave the marks. You look back to his face, and now the words are coming, slow and broken. New men, he says. Not from here. Not local. His voice is hoarse, barely a whisper. Wear the sheriff's colors, but don't speak like his guards. They ask too much. They don't care who you are. He goes on, breath catching every few words. They came to his village 3 nights ago. Said they were looking for sympathizers, for those who aid the hooded man. They took 5. He was one. Tied them in the square. Questioned them in turns. One didn't come back. One begged to confess before they even touched him. He didn't know what to confess to. The man in front of you, he ran. Broke a rope, crawled through a goat stall, didn't stop crawling until the tree swallowed him. You listen without interrupting. Marion brings water, and he drinks it like it's fire. When she asks his name, he doesn't answer. Or maybe he doesn't remember. He just looks at you again, eyes bloodshot and wide. I know what you are, he says. I know what you try to be. Let me stay. His voice is ragged but urgent. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't send me back. You don't answer. Not yet. You rise slowly and step back, letting others tend to him. He collapses again, exhausted, fingers curled into the mud like roots searching for safety. You watch from a distance as they pull a blanket over him, bring broth, check his wounds. No one speaks to you. They're waiting. They know what this means. If the sheriff has new men, foreign, well-trained, cruel without hesitation, it means he's done waiting too. It means your name no longer frightens. It means your shadow over these woods is growing thinner. You turn away, back toward the trees, and listen. Not for danger this time, for something quieter, for the sound of another line being crossed, another point past which return is no longer possible. Behind you, the man groans in his sleep. Or maybe he's still awake. You don't ask again. You already know enough. You sit on the same log where you've sat 100 times before, the bark worn smooth beneath you, the wood damp but familiar. In your lap rests your bow, its curve dulled from age and weather, but still true. You run a cloth along its length, careful to feel for splinters or cracks. There's a soft spot near the middle now, one you've been ignoring for too long. You rub beeswax into it slowly, forcing it into the grain like a kind of prayer. The smell of it mixes with the morning. Wet moss, wood smoke, boiled linen. Your fingers are stiff, but they move out of habit. You've done this more times than you can count, in better seasons, with stronger hands and steadier nerves. Now everything feels slower, more fragile. Your shoulder throbs as you reach for the string. You draw once just to test the pull, and wince as the pain spikes through your back. You hold the draw anyway, just for a moment, just long enough to pretend. The string hums when you release it, not loudly, just enough to remind you of what's expected. You set the bow aside and pull the quiver closer, counting what remains. 8 arrows, 2 of them with cracked shafts, 1 with a crooked fletching. You could fix that, maybe, if you had the patience, if you had the time. You pull off your cloak and unbuckle the chest strap that's grown too tight from being soaked and dried a dozen times over. The leather is stiff and torn near the edges. You adjust the fit, reposition the shoulder guard, and feel the bruise beneath it press back. Every movement takes thought. Every breath seems to echo too loudly. You reach for the dagger at your belt, check its edge. It's duller than you remember. You wipe it on your boot anyway, then slide it back into place. This isn't for fighting. Not really. This is for what happens after. Around you, the others move in low silence. Tom is checking the horses, or what passes for horses now. 2 stocky beasts, ribs showing, still strong enough to carry packs, but not much else. Marion is speaking with one of the younger men, her voice flat, giving him a list of things to remember. Don't run, don't shout, don't kill unless you must. He nods, eyes too wide. You doubt he'll remember half of it, but he wants to prove something. and that's more dangerous than fear. You shoulder your gear and test the weight. The cloak drags heavy across your back. The quiver digs into your spine. The bow fits snug across your chest, but you can already feel the pull in your arms. You stretch once more and try to ignore the way your bones protest. You used to move like a shadow. Now every step reminds you what's changed. They look to you when the moment comes. Not with ceremony. There's no time for that. Just a glance, a pause, a shared silence. You nod once and it's enough, because that's what you are now. A nod, a shape, a story that walks upright and pretends not to limp. They think you're ready, so you must be. They think you know what you're doing, so you do. But inside, you're counting things you can't say aloud. How many arrows you've lost. How many friends aren't coming back. How many roads you've taken that don't lead anywhere. You close your eyes and take a breath. You think of the sheriff, of the men he's sent, of the noose he's promised you. You think of what it means to be a symbol, to stand for something. Then you open your eyes and you walk. Because today, again, you don't get to be tired. You don't get to hesitate. Today, again, you get to be Robin Hood, whether you want to or not. The cart creaks before you see it. Wooden wheels dragging through soft soil, axles whining with each turn. You're already in position, belly to the ground behind a fallen tree, heart ticking too fast. Around you, the others wait, silent shapes in underbrush and shadow. You count 4 bodies with the cart. The driver, 2 guards walking alongside, and a monk riding in back, robes hiked to keep from dragging. The cart's loaded high with sacks, flour, maybe grain, tied down with rope and a red cloth seal. It's more than you expected. You glance across the clearing toward Will, who nods once and shifts his stance. Everything is set. The plan was simple. Let them enter the narrow pass, block the rear with a fallen tree, hit fast. No killing unless necessary. Get the supplies. Be gone before the echo of steel fades. But you know plans like that don't survive the first breath of panic. The driver slows as the wheels catch in a rut. One of the guards gestures for him to keep going. The monk lifts his head and mutters something. Prayer or complaint, you can't tell. You draw your bowstring back, feeling the tension climb through your shoulder. Not yet. Not yet. You can see their faces now. Not afraid, just bored. Tired men doing a job. The second guard turns his head and stops. His eyes narrow. He stares toward the tree line just left of where Tom is crouched. You don't see what gave him away. A branch, a reflection. It doesn't matter. The guard shouts, a word lost in the sudden spike of alarm, and the driver pulls on the reins. The horse rears back. Will moves too soon. Then the guard reaches for his blade. You fire. No time to aim. Just reflex. The arrow hums past your knuckles, disappears into the space between ribs, and the man collapses before he finishes the turn. Chaos follows. The driver screams. The monk shouts something holy and dives off the cart. The second guard raises a crossbow, but Marion's already moving. Her arrow hits him in the arm, knocking the weapon from his grip. You roll to the side and notch another arrow, scanning the field. Tom has sprung from cover, blade drawn, charging toward the road like he's invincible. Will follows, shouting orders no one hears. The monk tries to crawl under the cart, his robes catching on splinters. One of the sacks bursts, flour clouding the air like smoke. You can barely see. You move forward anyway, half running, half sliding through mud. The driver is fumbling with something. Dagger, maybe a whip, but his hands shake too badly to use either. You shout at him to drop it. He doesn't. You draw, hesitate, then shoot low. The arrow takes him in the thigh, and he screams again, this time in real pain. The cart is still upright. The road is still yours. But it doesn't feel like victory. The guards are down, but so is one of yours. You see blood on the ground where Tom stood seconds ago. You don't know if it's his. The monk is on his knees, hands raised, trembling. Will yells for someone to check the bags, to cut the harnesses, to move fast. You look down at your bow. One arrow gone, another cracked. You sling it over your back and draw your knife instead. Not for fighting, just for cutting rope, just for the weight of something solid in your hand. The flower in the air starts to settle. The shapes become men again, and the stillness returns, just long enough for you to remember this was never supposed to be violent. But you've stopped believing in that kind of plan. The kind where no one dies, the kind where anyone leaves clean. You meet the monk's eyes for half a second before turning away. You don't need to explain anything. He's already looking at you like he knows who you are, or who you're supposed to be. You see him out of the corner of your eye, just after the last guard falls. He's on the ground, curled slightly, hands pressed to his stomach like he's trying to hold something in. For a moment you think he's just winded. Then you see the arrow. It's buried deep, just below the ribs, fletching, quivering with each ragged breath. His mouth is open, but the scream that comes out is high and cracked, more like a child than a fighter. He's not even trying to hide the sound. It pours out of him in pulses, raw and helpless. You drop beside him, knees in the dirt, already knowing it's too late. His hands are slick with blood. He looks at you, eyes wide, not with fear, but with disbelief, like he never imagined this part would include him. He was new, barely out of his teens, from one of the outer villages that had sent a few men in hopes of protection and bread. You don't remember his name. He told you once, quietly, standing near the fire, asking if he could help with arrows. He had a nervous smile. You said yes, distracted. You don't remember if you ever spoke to him again. Now his face is inches from yours, and you can see how pale he's gone in just seconds. He tries to speak, lips moving with no sound. You press your hand to his side out of reflex, but there's too much blood. It runs between your fingers, warm and fast, with a smell like iron and rot. You shake your head, just slightly, and he sees it. You watch his eyes register what you already knew the moment you saw him fall. He's not going to survive. Not like this. Not here. Not in this place. The screaming starts again. Not just from pain now. From something deeper. Panic, betrayal. He tries to grab your wrist, and you let him. His fingers are weak but frantic, like he's trying to stop time by force. The others are watching. Not all of them, but enough. You don't look back. You pull the knife from your belt. It's clean. It won't stay that way. You meet his eyes again. There's no time to speak, and no words that would help. You hold his head steady with one hand, angle the blade with the other. Your arm moves without hesitation. The cut is fast, deep. His body jerks once, then stills. You stay kneeling for a moment longer, waiting for the breath that won't come. When it's clear he's gone, you wipe the blade on your cloak and slide it back into its sheath. No one says anything. No one needs to. You stand slowly, your knees grinding like old wood. The blood on your hands has already begun to dry. Someone behind you begins gathering the sacks. Someone else pulls the body toward the trees. You don't ask where they'll bury him. You don't ask who knew him. You don't ask his name. The arrow still lies where it fell, point buried in the ground. You glance at it, then look away. You feel your shoulder throb with every step as you return to the cart. The monk is still there, watching you. He saw everything. He doesn't speak, just lowers his eyes as if in prayer. You pull your hood up and focus on the path ahead. There's more to do, always more. The forest doesn't stop for grief, and neither do you. He's still on his knees when you return to the cart, robes stained with dirt and flour, head bowed low like he's waiting for the end. His hands are clasped in front of him, trembling but still, fingers white at the knuckles. For a moment, you think he might be praying. Then he speaks. His voice is smooth, practiced, the kind you've heard before from pulpits and gallows. "Mercy," he says. "You've taken the cart. Take the food. We won't resist. I won't resist." His eyes lift just enough to meet yours, and you see the wet gleam of tears that may or may not be real. "God sees what we do in fear," he continues, "but he also sees mercy." The words hang in the air, sweet like old wine turned sour. You've heard them too many times. They no longer taste like anything. You tell him to stand. He does. Slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. His gaze stays low, his posture humble. The guards are dead. The driver wounded and unconscious. There's no fight left here, or so he wants you to believe. You motion for Will to check the cargo while you turn toward the monk. He stands barefoot in the mud, one hand gripping the rope belt around his waist like it anchors him to this place. "I'm not your enemy," he says. "I'm a servant of God." You nod once and gesture for him to open his satchel. He hesitates, just slightly, then complies. Inside, dried roots, some kind of book, a wooden crucifix, and a cloth-wrapped bundle. You take it. He doesn't protest. Not out loud. The bundle is heavier than it looks. You unwrap it slowly, expecting bread or salt or some trinket a monk might keep close. Instead, you find steel, a short, narrow-bladed dagger with a blackened hilt and a fresh edge. No decoration, no history, just a tool meant for silence. You hold it up, let the light catch on the edge, then look back at him. His expression doesn't change, but the muscles in his throat twitch once. "For protection," he says quickly. "You know what the roads are like." You don't answer. You nod to Marion. She steps forward and starts checking the rest of his robe, rough but efficient. Nothing else. No other weapons. Just the knife. And the lie. He doesn't plead again. Just watches you, breathing faster now. The humility is gone from his posture, but not his voice. That still pretends. You step closer. Not out of anger, not for show, just necessity. You don't have time for uncertain loyalties. You don't have the space to keep someone who lies with a smile. Your hand moves fast, open palm, across the face. It knocks him sideways into the mud. He gasps once, sharp and shocked, then scrambles to his knees again. Another blow. This time the heel of your boot to his chest. He folds forward with a grunt. No one stops you. No one moves. This is not punishment. It's a message. To him, to the others watching. To the sky above if it's still listening. You lean down, grab him by the collar, and speak low. You carry steel, you say. You lie to my face. You quote scripture while hiding blades. He tries to speak, but you squeeze his robe tighter. God sees what we do in fear, you echo, but I see what you do with your hands. Then you let go. He falls, coughing, crumpled and dirty. You don't kill him, not today, but the decision not to is weight enough. He knows what it cost him. You step away, wiping your hands on your cloak, and signal to the others. Load what you can. Burn what's useless. Strip the cart. Leave nothing that can be traced. The monk stays where he is, quiet now, face to the side, cheek pressed against damp soil like a man awaiting judgment. You don't speak to him again. You already said more than he deserves. And deep down, you know this won't be the last time someone begs with scripture and lies with a blade. Out here, everyone's afraid. Some just hide it better than others. The cart is mostly empty now, not just because you've unloaded it, but because it was never full to begin with. The sacks, 4 of them, turn out to be barley, poorly milled and riddled with tiny weevils that scatter as soon as the cloth is torn. Will kicks one of the bags in frustration, sending a cloud of dust into the air. It's edible, sure, but barely. Enough to stretch 2 or 3 meals if you thin it with water and lie to the taste buds. Marion opens a crate next to it. Inside are small cloth bundles of herbs, most of them crushed or spoiled from damp. In another satchel, a brass buckle, pitted and dull, the kind that might have once fastened a servant's belt. Nothing worth selling. Nothing worth risking lives for. The youngest among you holds up a bottle with a faint label. Vinegar. He turns it in his hands like it might become wine if stared at long enough. No one says anything right away. That's the worst part. Not the weight of failure, but the silence it brings. The monk is still sitting in the dirt where you left him, but now he watches with something like smugness in his eyes. You can feel it even if you don't look directly at him. This was supposed to be worth something. A church cart. A supply run headed for the sheriff's outpost. Word in the villages was that it carried silver. That's why you came with so many. Why you took the risk. Why one of yours is now lying under a shroud of flour sacks, his blood soaking into the wheels. You can still see the smear on the ground where he fell, though someone tried to kick dust over it. You glance back at the others. They're not angry. Not yet. But they're close. Hunger does that. Grief, too. When both meet, they don't shout. They just wait. They look at you, and they wait. You step forward and start helping load the few usable items. It's not much. The barley goes into sacks already half full of dirt and old oats. The vinegar is packed carefully. Maybe it can help clean wounds or keep meat from spoiling another day. The herbs are divided, even if they smell like rot. Marion hands you the buckle. You turn it over once, feel its weight, then tuck it into your pouch without a word. You want to say something. Remind them that anything is better than nothing, that survival is built on days like this. But your mouth won't open. You've given that speech before. It doesn't land anymore. Not after another body. Not after another broken promise. You shoulder the quiver tighter and scan the road for movement. Nothing. Just trees. Just silence. Just more of the same. Someone finally breaks it. A dry voice, Lytton maybe, says, "That's all?" And you nod. You don't lie. You never have. That's what makes this worse. They can't hate you for failure if you pretend it's victory. But you won't do that. You say yes, that's all. And then you move, because standing still invites questions, doubt, memory. You walk toward the tree line, signaling for the others to finish up. It takes them longer than usual. No one hurries. No one jokes. The monk is still there, quiet now. Maybe he understands what he took from you by not dying. Maybe he doesn't. Either way, you don't look at him again. You just walk into the woods, one more shadow beneath the branches, carrying nothing of value and too much of everything else. You arrive back at the clearing, just as the sun begins its slow crawl down the western edge of the trees. The camp should be quiet in the usual way, soft with breath, scattered with low voices, the smell of ash and damp cloth in the air. But this silence is different. Not calm, not settled. It's the kind of silence that waits. You notice it first in the fire. It's cold, dead. The stones around it are still dark with soot, but the ashes are pale and untouched, like no one's bothered to tend it in hours. That alone is strange. There's always someone who keeps the fire going, even when food is scarce. You scan the tents. 3 are empty. 1 has been half collapsed, the stake loosened and left lying beside it, like a careless afterthought. Nothing's burned. Nothing's torn. But everything's wrong. Then you see the sack. It had been tied and strung between 2 trees, hanging just above eye level to keep it from the animals. Now it's split down one side. The twine snapped. Its contents, salted meat, scattered on the ground, flies already circling. You move closer, crouch, and inspect the edges. Not chewed, cut, clean. Someone used a blade. You feel it in your stomach first. Not fear, not yet, but a weight, a change in the air, a sense that someone else has walked through your home while you were gone. You rise slowly, turning in a full circle. The forest stares back, still and quiet. Nothing moves between the trees, but it's too still. No birds, no snapping twigs, not even the rustle of squirrels. It's the kind of stillness that only comes when something smarter has passed through. Something that knows how not to leave tracks. You call out once, a quiet name, just to see who answers. No one does. Marion appears a few moments later, bow slung across her shoulder, face drawn tight. She doesn't speak, just gestures toward the north edge of camp. There's a pile of clothing there, left half folded near the roots of a tree. Someone packed. Someone tried to leave. Or did. You walk over and see that the clothes belong to one of the older men, a trapper who rarely spoke but always watched. He's gone now. No note. No goodbye. Just absence. Will comes up behind you, whispers low that 2 others are missing. One of the boys, and the woman with the scar across her face. You ask if anyone saw them go. Will shakes his head. No one did, or they won't admit it. That's the danger now, not the loss, but the silence around it. Silence is its own kind of betrayal. You check the tree line again and feel it. Not the presence of danger, but the echo of observation. Like someone was here. Not to steal, not to kill, but just to see, to learn. And they did. They saw your numbers, your weakness, the fact that you leave camp unguarded, that you trust the quiet too much. You crouch beside the torn sack again, fingertips brushing the damp soil. There are boot prints, one set. Moving away, slow and deliberate. Not running, not dragging, just walking. You don't follow them. Not yet. Because whoever left them wanted you to. That's the point. You rise, brush your hands clean, and tell the others to double the watches. Will asks if we're moving again. You don't answer. Because you don't know. Because wherever you go now, someone will already be watching. Someone who's seen you come back tired and light-handed. Someone who knows that even legends can bleed. It's nearly dusk when you circle back along the trail you took that morning. The rest of the group is ahead, too far to call without shouting, but close enough to reach if something goes wrong. You told them you wanted to check for missed supplies. One of the younger ones dropped a pouch in the chaos of the ambush, but that was only part of the truth. The real reason is simpler. Something doesn't sit right. The camp felt wrong, the forest too quiet, the cart too easy, and now that you're alone again, the feeling sharpens. Every step feels watched. Every branch seems freshly broken. You reach the bend near the dry stream bed, the narrow place where the path narrows to a channel between two sloped banks, and stop. That's where you see it. A branch, low and thick, recently cut clean. Not broken, not rotted. Sliced smooth with a blade. You crouch next to the stump. The edge is fresh, sap still beads at the cut. You glance at the ground nearby and find the confirmation you didn't want. Footprints. 3, maybe 4 sets. Deep impressions, spaced wide. Not careful, not silent. They weren't hiding. They weren't moving like prey. They were waiting. You follow them with your eyes, tracing the pattern. 2 sets move toward the high ridge where you'd normally pass on the return. 2 more flank the tree line opposite. Not quite an ambush yet, but close. You step back, scan the undergrowth. There are faint signs of weight on the leaves. A length of twine hangs from one low branch, frayed at the end. Maybe it once held a warning bell. Maybe something worse. But whatever it wasn't meant for you this morning. It was meant for someone coming back slower. Someone alone. Someone like you. The realization settles slowly. They knew your pattern. They knew where you'd go, but they got the timing wrong. The attack was meant for later. For the cart on its way back, when your people would be scattered and tired, less alert, carrying goods that might make them careless. You happened to come early, or they were just late. Either way, the trap's been sprung without its prey. You rise again, heart thudding low but steady, and look around once more. No movement, no sound. But that doesn't mean safety. It means patience. Whoever they weren't bandits. Bandits leave chaos. These were watchers, maybe sheriff's men, maybe deserters, maybe something worse. Locals with a grudge and no banner to carry. You scan the ridges for glinting steel or the flash of movement, but the forest is empty, or pretending to be. You take one last look at the branch, then move carefully away, not back the way you came, but at an angle, avoiding open paths. You step soft, count your breath, feel the weight of your bow on your shoulder like a question. You won't tell the others right away. Not tonight. Not when morale is already cracked. But you'll watch who sleeps where, who asks about routes, who walks too close to the edge of camp with eyes too calm. Because now you know something you didn't before. Someone out there is thinking ahead. They know the forest. They know your habits. And they're waiting, not for a fight, but for the right moment. And the worst part isn't that you almost walked into it. It's that next time you might not walk out. He's lying near the edge of camp, propped awkwardly against a fallen log. One arm wrapped around his chest and the other resting limply across his lap. His face is swollen on one side, jaw set at an unnatural angle, the skin bruised dark from cheek to temple. You're not sure if it was the kick from the guard's boot or the fall from the cart that did it, but it doesn't matter now. He can't chew, barely swallows, and hasn't eaten since they dragged him back. Someone tried to bind his jaw with cloth, but it hangs loose now, soaked with spit and blood, unraveling at the edges. You approach quietly, stepping over tangled roots and a patch of disturbed moss. He sees you before you reach him. His eyes follow you like they've been waiting, not with fear or relief, just something heavier. Expectation, maybe, or judgment. You crouch beside him, resting one hand on your knee. You don't ask how he is. You already know. He won't last long without healing, and you don't have a healer. He's breathing shallow, jaw clenching every time pain surges through his ribs. You offer him water, and he takes it, shakily. Spills most of it. You hold the cup this time, lifting it carefully to his lips. He drinks, winces, then pushes your hand away with what little strength he has left. For a moment, he just breathes, eyes closed, mouth twitching like he's chewing air. Then he speaks. It's not much, just a whisper, a rasp pulled out of a throat that wasn't made for anger, but holds it anyway. You brought us there, he says. Each word comes slow, with effort, like it costs him more than it should. You brought us. You don't reply right away. You sit there, letting the words settle in the dirt between you like spilled coin. He doesn't say it again. He doesn't need to. The others wouldn't dare say it out loud. They think it. You know they do. Every time food runs low, every time someone dies, every time a plan goes wrong and a body is buried before the sun sets. They look at you, but not to you, through you, as if trying to measure how much more weight you can carry before you collapse like the rest. But he says it plainly. You led them there. You chose the time, the road, the target, and someone died. More than one. He almost did, and maybe he still will. You lower your eyes, watch a fly land on the bandage and crawl across the bloodied cloth. You don't brush it away. He shifts slightly, sucking air through his teeth, then rests his head against the log again. His gaze has lost focus, drifting somewhere between exhaustion and resentment. You want to tell him you didn't know, that it wasn't supposed to go that way, that the informant said there would be no guards, that the traps weren't meant for you, that you thought the monk was harmless, that the boy who died wasn't supposed to be in the front line. But you don't say any of it, because none of it matters. Not to him, not anymore. The truth won't fix his jaw. It won't unspill the blood. It won't make him believe in you again. So you do the only honest thing left. You stay quiet. You sit beside him until his breathing evens out and his eyes slip shut. And then you stand, wipe your hands on your tunic, and walk back into the trees, carrying the words with you like another wound no one can see. Her bag is still there when you return to camp, slumped beside the log where she usually sits, half open, one strap twisted as if dropped in a hurry. Her knife is gone, but the flint's still inside. You check the contents with the back of your hand, warm from the day's sun, untouched by rain. She left it behind. On purpose or not, you can't tell. No one saw her go, or if they did, they're not saying. Will shrugs when you ask. The others avoid your eyes. One of the younger boys says she was walking by the stream hours ago, but he didn't think to follow. No one's worried, not openly, but the space she leaves is loud. You feel it in the way people move, quieter, sharper, avoiding the patch of ground where she used to sit. You say nothing. You sling your bow over your shoulder and leave the edge of camp behind. You don't call her name. There's no point. Marion doesn't respond to shouts. Not anymore. If she doesn't want to be found, she won't be. And if something's happened, shouting will only invite the wrong kind of attention. You move slow, deliberate, tracing familiar trails in widening arcs. The forest closes around you quickly, thick with green, the kind that filters sound and light, and leaves you half blind to movement. You listen more than you walk. Listen for branches shifting, for the crunch of boots, for the sound of someone breathing where no one should be. But the woods are quiet. Not peaceful. Just mute. The birds have stopped singing. That bothers you more than anything. You crouch near a bend in the stream and check the moss for impressions. Nothing fresh, just shallow prints from yesterday, blurred and softened by time. You think about the last time you spoke to her. Really spoke. Not a command, not a shared glance across a fire, but a full sentence meant to be heard. You can't remember when it was. Days ago, maybe more. She's been drifting away for a while now, still present, still useful, still sharp-eyed with a bow, but distant in ways that can't be mapped. There's nothing romantic between you, not anymore, if there ever was. Just a history of closeness that won't fully burn out, a thread that frays but never snaps. And now, in her absence, you feel its pull more than ever. You follow a narrow trail that snakes around the roots of an old oak, down into a hollow where you once hid from a patrol. The shadows are deeper here, the air still and warm. You pause. You feel something. Not presence, absence, a deliberate kind. The kind that watches from behind bark and silence. You press on, not calling, not rushing. If she's gone to think, she'll come back when she's ready. If she's run, chasing her won't help. If something's happened, your hand tightens on the bow. You don't finish the thought. The forest stretches ahead, a shifting wall of green and memory. You reach a stone outcrop where she once kept lookout years ago, before things became so crowded. There's no sign of her now. You sit for a moment anyway, breathing slowly, letting the forest settle around you. The longer you wait, the more the tension folds into your bones. Not fear, not quite. Just knowing that she's not here, that she left without telling you, that maybe she wanted to, and maybe that silence was the loudest thing she's ever said. When you finally stand, the sky has begun to dim. You don't head back immediately. You take the long way. You keep your eyes open, but you don't call her name, not once. You see her before she sees you. She's sitting on a low stone at the edge of a clearing, half in shadow, half lit by the dying afternoon light. Her cloak is draped over her shoulders, hood down, hair caught in a slow breeze. She's not moving, not fidgeting, not even shifting her weight, just still. Watching the road that cuts through the trees ahead, narrow, rutted, lined with weeds and the ghosts of wagons long gone. You stop just within the tree line, far enough not to disturb her, close enough to see that her bow rests across her knees. Unstrung, her hands lie open in her lap, fingers loose. You've seen her like this before, after battles, after death, after nights when the fire gave no warmth, but never this far from camp, never alone. Never so still it hurts to look at her. She doesn't turn when you step closer. Your boots crush the edge of a dry leaf, and still she doesn't move. It's like she's waiting. Not for danger, for something else. A message, a sign, a reason. You say her name softly, and only then does she tilt her head, slowly, just enough to show she heard. Her eyes meet yours briefly, then return to the road. You walk the last few steps and sit beside her on the stone. It's cold, the moss damp through the fabric of your trousers. She doesn't speak, and you don't push. Instead, you follow her gaze. Nothing moves on the road. No wagon, no patrol. Just the long curve of dirt bending between the trees, leading somewhere else. Somewhere you won't go, not today. Maybe not ever. When she does speak, her voice is quiet, not soft. Quiet like a closed room, like a thought spoken only halfway. It's stupid, she says. I know it is. You wait. She glances at you again, then back at the road. I thought maybe I'd see someone, a sign, anything. She laughs once, dry, almost embarrassed. I used to believe they'd send someone after me, that I mattered enough to be looked for. Her shoulders rise and fall with a breath too heavy to be just breath. You don't interrupt. She doesn't need comfort. She needs room. Now I think maybe I was wrong about a lot of things. Her hand brushes the moss beside her, fingers curling in the green. About what we're doing, about who we are, about whether any of this means something. You want to tell her it does, that the people you've helped still whisper her name, that the guards speak of her with more fear than they do you, that without her, the camp would unravel faster than it already has. But the words don't come, not because they're untrue, but because she already knows them, and they don't help anymore. Instead, you say what you can. You came back. It's not a question. She nods once. I didn't want to. Another silence. Longer. The wind picks up slightly, brushing through the leaves overhead. Somewhere distant, a raven cries out and is answered by another. She finally looks at you, eyes tired but clear. If I leave next time, she says, I might not come back. You nod, not to agree, just to let her know you heard. She turns her gaze to the road again, and so do you. Two silhouettes on a stone, watching a path that leads nowhere, saying nothing more, because there's nothing left to say. He's lying near the fire, though the fire itself has long since burned down to pale ash. Someone placed a blanket over him, but it only covers his legs. His arms are still visible, thin, awkwardly positioned, fingers curled slightly inward like he reached for something before letting go. His face is turned toward the sky, mouth parted, eyes closed, but not fully. You recognize the look. It's not sleep. It's not peace. It's just stillness. The kind that doesn't break when you whisper a name. The others are scattered around the camp, pretending not to notice. A few have moved further off, fiddling with gear or sharpening blades that don't need it. No one speaks, not even the ones who usually curse at silence. You move toward him slowly, not because you're unsure, but because there's nothing urgent left to do. He's gone, and you weren't there. Someone says they gave him water, that he drank a little last night, then stopped. Someone else says he was shivering in the dark, but by morning, he was quiet. Marion sat with him for a while. One of the older women tried to hum a song she remembered from her own childhood. It didn't help. He never spoke again after sunset. You remember telling him you'd go find the healer, the one in the hills, past the old shrine where the stones lean like teeth. You meant it. You just didn't leave. There was the raid to plan, the trap to unravel, the monk, the missing food. The boy slipped through all of that, day by day, hour by hour, until he stopped moving and no one had the strength to shout. Now he's a shape under cloth, a memory already fading, and it's too late to say anything worth saying. You crouch beside him and rest your hand lightly on his chest, expecting warmth that isn't there. His shirt is damp, not from sweat, but from the night air and the way the world keeps going even when a body stops. His skin is cold now, the color fading to something gray and soft. You don't cry, you haven't in years, but you feel something heavy press behind your ribs. Rage, guilt, or that particular weight that only comes when a promise outlives the one you made it to. He didn't ask for much, just to stay near the fire, just to hold someone's hand, just to be told it would pass. He was never supposed to be in the camp at all, just a shadow that followed another survivor, then stayed when the shadow vanished. You don't remember his name. You think someone said it once, but no one wrote it down. You pull the blanket higher, covering his face. The motion is slow, careful, like closing a book you were never ready to finish. You stay there for a moment longer, listening to the breath of the forest and the quiet behind you. No prayers, no farewells, just the smell of ash and sickness, and the sound of someone sharpening a blade they'll never use. You rise and turn back toward the camp. No one meets your eyes. You don't ask them to. You walk past Marion, who sits with her arms folded, staring into nothing. Past Will, who's pulling a wet log apart with too much force. Past the boy's empty bowl still sitting near the fire. You told him you'd go find help, but you didn't. And now there's one fewer mouth to feed, and no one says it, but they think it. You think it too. The shovel snapped on the third push. The handle, dry and brittle from weeks in the rain and sun, gave out with a dull crack that echoed too loud in the quiet clearing. You stared at the broken tool for a long moment, its jagged end resting in the dirt beside your foot. No one said anything. No one offered another, because there wasn't one. You dropped the splintered handle and knelt beside the half-started hole, already shallow, already too small. The ground was worse than it looked. Thick clay beneath the topsoil, tangled with roots that seemed to twist in defiance of your hands. You dug with your fingers, slow at first, then faster, pulling back handfuls of earth that clung to your skin like wet bread. The The first root came up easy. The second fought back. The third tore your knuckle open when it refused to snap. You didn't stop. The others stood at a distance, in a rough line near the tree line, saying nothing, watching but not offering. A few looked away, but most didn't. Their faces were blank, not from cruelty, but from something deeper. The dull understanding that this moment had to happen, and none of them could carry it. He was your burden now. The boy, the fever, the body still wrapped in a cloak too small for winter. You dug until your nails bent backward and clay packed under them in hard red crescents. Your palms blistered, then tore. The sting barely registered. Every few minutes you stopped to breathe, leaning forward on your elbows, forehead against the dirt, heart thudding slow and heavy like a drum in fog. Then you kept going, because no one else would, because someone had to. It took longer than it should have. Not just the digging, but the pause that came after. The moment when the hole was done, and the shape in your arms had to be lowered in. He felt lighter than you remembered. His limbs folded too easily. His head turned wrong when you settled him in the earth. You adjusted it without thinking, tucking a bit of cloth beneath his cheek like he might still feel it. The others still didn't move. One of the women crossed herself, quietly. Will looked at the ground. Marion didn't look at all. You sat back on your heels, breathing through your mouth, fingers raw and shaking. You said nothing. No prayer. No speech. Just dirt, falling in handfuls, slow and steady, dull against the stillness of the boy's cloak. You filled the grave like you dug it, alone. By the time it was done, your hands were bloodied, your arms coated to the elbow in cold mud, and your face stiff with dried sweat. You didn't wipe it away. You stood, bones aching, clothes hanging heavy, and turned from the grave without a word. The others began to move again, slowly, drifting back toward the camp like smoke on windless air. No one touched your shoulder. No one spoke your name. The fire still hadn't been lit. The evening was coming, and someone would need to set a watch. You didn't care who. You walked past the boy's empty bedroll, past the dented water cup he used, past the spot where he sat 3 days ago, watching the fire like it was a story he didn't understand. The grave sat behind you now, shallow and wet and final. You didn't mark it. You didn't need to. You'd know exactly where it was, every time you closed your eyes. You reach for the supply sack like you've done 100 times before, expecting the weight to greet your hand, the familiar rattle of shafts and flint points, the rough binding of feathered fletching. Instead, your fingers sink into nothing, just fabric, empty air and the hollow weight of absence. You freeze for a moment, knuckles tightening on the edge of the sack, then dig deeper. Your hand touches the bottom easily, too easily. You pull it inside out, just to be sure, just to give yourself the chance to be wrong. But it's empty, no arrows, not even broken ones. Only a single bundle remains in the smaller side pouch. 5 arrows wrapped in old cloth meant for emergencies. The kind you never use unless you're ready to bleed after. You unwrap them slowly and count again, even though you don't need to. 5. Just 5. That's all. You stand and turn to face the camp. No alarm, no one moving too fast. The fire's finally been lit. A few people sit near it, stirring the pot, hunched in silence. One of the boys is patching a cloak with twine. Marion is sharpening her blade, the rhythm steady and unhurried. Will is cleaning out a pan with a fistful of moss. Lytton is leaning against a tree, arms crossed, staring into the woods like he expects something better out there. You walk toward the center and stop, letting the weight of your footsteps carry the message. People glance up, then look away just as quickly. You hold up the empty sack, say nothing. You don't need to. The silence does it for you. You scan the circle face by face. No one meets your eyes, not even Lytton, especially not Lytton. The arrows were stored near your sleeping spot. Everyone knew that. It wasn't locked. You've never locked them. There was no need. The weapons weren't luxury. They were life. Shared, counted, tracked. You kept them dry, sharpened, ready. Everyone used them. Everyone needed them. But no one was supposed to take them without telling you. Not all of them. Not in the middle of a week where you've already lost more than you can name. You ask the question, low and steady, who took them? The fire cracks once. Someone stirs the pot harder than necessary. No one answers. You wait. You don't raise your voice. You don't need to. This isn't about anger. It's about trust. And how fast it slips when hunger and fear get teeth. Lytton shifts slightly, not enough to speak, just enough to feel seen. You hold his gaze when he finally looks up. It's not guilt in his face, just tiredness, like he expected to be caught eventually. But he doesn't confess. No one does. And you don't push. Because the truth is worse than the act. Someone took them. Maybe to trade. Maybe to flee. Maybe just to hold on to something sharp when the world turns softer than they can bear. But they didn't ask. They didn't share. And now you have 5 arrows between all of you. You fold the cloth slowly, wrap the bundle tight, and place it at your belt. No one speaks. No one moves. The fire keeps burning. The shadows stretch longer. And tomorrow, if the wrong face comes through the trees, you'll know just how much 5 arrows aren't enough. It comes just as the last light begins to slip behind the trees. A whistle, short and sharp, cutting through the stillness like the crack of a green branch underfoot. It's not a bird. You've lived in these woods too long to mistake it for anything natural. It's deliberate, human, measured and flat, the kind used when voices can't be risked, when distance is short but danger is closer. You freeze mid-step, one hand on your belt, breath halting in your throat. Then a second whistle, slightly farther off, different pitch, a reply. Not from your people, not from any code you've taught, Ma. That's all you need to know. Someone's near, more than one. And they're not running. They're coordinating. You drop into a crouch, one knee pressing into wet moss, the other braced behind you, spine curved low like you were born to vanish. You motion to Will with 2 fingers, quick and low, then flatten your palm, down. He hits the ground without a word, body pressed flat behind a thicket of bramble. To your left, Marion already has her bow half drawn, her breath so quiet you can't hear it over the wind. Somewhere behind, a boot scuffs on bark, too loud to be from your group. You don't look. You just shift weight and sink lower until your chest kisses the forest floor and the dirt presses cold against your cheek. Every sense sharpens in moments like this. Your heartbeat slows but feels heavier, louder in your ears than it should. You smell damp bark, old smoke, the iron tang of dried blood on your cuffs. The forest holds its breath with you. The leaves above don't rustle. The birds don't return. and the second whistle still hangs in the space between tree trunks like a rope drawn taut. You count seconds. 5, 10, 15. Nothing. Whoever's out there isn't moving fast. They don't need to. They're scouting. They're watching. Maybe they've seen you already. Maybe they're waiting for a signal of their own. You grip the bow tighter, regretting every arrow that's missing. You want to stand, to move, to act. But this isn't a fight yet. It's a hunt. And you don't know who's the hunter. The boy beside you is trembling slightly. You hear it in the way his breath catches, shallow and sharp. You slide one hand toward him in the leaves and press your fingers to his sleeve. Just enough pressure to tell him, stay. Still, present, alive. He doesn't nod, but you feel his breathing slow. That's something. That's what you can still give them, fear, managed into discipline, silence carved into survival. Minutes pass, the forest doesn't move, but something out there does. A branch creaks once, faint and high, then another, farther off. Someone circling or withdrawing or testing your patience. You don't rise, not yet. The wrong move means exposure, means arrows, means the end of whatever rhythm you've managed to hold these last weeks. So you lie there, in the dirt, in the dark, waiting, like prey with a name someone else has already spoken. You think about the boy you buried, about the arrows that disappeared, about the monk, the whisper, the sack of flour. And you realize this moment was always coming. The forest isn't shelter anymore. It's cover. For them, for you, for what's coming next. When you finally rise, slow and silent, the sound of the whistles is gone. But the quiet they left behind is worse. It feels like breath held by someone else, and you don't know when it will be released. You spot them from the ridge, just before the fog thickens near the edge of the road. A column of 5, moving slow, feet sinking into the soft dirt of the cart path. 2 guards in front, 1 behind, all in mail that glints faintly in the late light. Between them walks a man in chains. His wrists are bound with iron links, arms pulled tight behind his back. And even from this distance, you recognize the limp. He's barefoot. His tunic is torn down one side, and there's blood crusted into the fabric near the shoulder. You can't see his face clearly, but you don't need to. The shape of him is burned into your mind from campfires and whispered plans and shared scraps of food. You know how he leans to one side when tired, how he mutters to himself when afraid. He wasn't a fighter. He was just loyal. And now he's a prisoner. Your stomach turns cold. You drop to the ground slowly, belly to the dirt, eyes fixed between the trees. The 4th man in the group is the sheriff. You'd know him even without the black sash and the stiff posture. He rides a dark horse, upright, still, like the world around him doesn't dare shift. His head turns slowly, scanning the forest line. He knows the woods watch him, even if he doesn't see you. There's no wagon, no visible supplies, just the man, the chains, the guards, and that unbearable confidence. They're not hiding. This isn't transport. This is display, a message, a parade. They're not rushing because they want to be seen. They want to show you what they've done, who they've taken, what's waiting if you keep resisting. You lie there motionless, heart a steady drum in your chest, jaw clenched hard enough to ache. You reach for your bow without thinking, not to draw, Not yet. Just the feel of it grounds you. The arrows at your hip feel too few, too fragile. You couldn't make the shot from here even if you tried. Too far, too many trees, too much chance of hitting the wrong body. And even if you could, then what? You kill one, maybe two, and the rest scatter into the woods, dragging the prisoner with them, stabbing as they go. He dies in the chaos, and the sheriff walks free again. You know the pattern. You've lived it before. Rescue only works when you're fast, and today, you're not. Today, you're too far, too late, and too few. So you don't move. You don't breathe deeper than you have to. You just watch, and feel the bitter taste of failure gather at the back of your throat like old ash. When they pass out of sight, swallowed by the bend in the road and the thickets beyond, you remain still. Long after the hoofbeats fade, long after the leaves stop trembling from their passing. The forest closes again around the absence like it never happened. But it did. You press your forehead to the ground, not in prayer, not in grief, just because you don't know what else to do. He's gone. You didn't even know he was missing. No one sounded the alarm. No one noticed. Or maybe someone did and didn't speak. You rise slowly, brushing dirt from your front, and turn back toward the trees, toward camp, toward the ones who are left. You don't know what you'll tell them. Maybe nothing. Maybe just silence. Because sometimes that's all there is. Not rescue, not revenge. Just silence. And one fewer face around the fire. The voice carries farther than it should. High, strained, laced with panic that doesn't sound real. It cuts through the trees like an arrow without feathers, tumbling but aimed. "He's in the northern hollow," it cries. "Robin, he's in the hollow!" For a second, your body doesn't react. It's too absurd, too sudden. Then the meaning lands, full weight. You freeze. Every nerve pulls tight. The voice is familiar, not just in sound, but in rhythm, in the way it rides the syllables of your name. You know who it is. You've shared bread with him, watched him train with a bow, watched him sleep near the fire like a dog curled for warmth. He laughed too loudly, spoke too quickly, always a little too eager to prove himself. You told yourself it was loyalty. It wasn't. You drop low behind a fallen log, heart pounding in your ears now, louder than the birds scattering above. The forest changes with those words. It tilts. It listens. You know that voice didn't shout for you. It shouted for them. For the guards hiding in the brush. For the patrol sweeping the ridge. For the men with ropes and shackles who needed just one spark of certainty to close the trap. He gave it to them. And he used your name. Not the archer. Not the outlaw. He gave them the real thing. Offered you up like a deer in a snare. You press your back against the bark, close your eyes for half a breath, and feel the shame burn deeper than the fear. Because you trusted him. You let him carry messages. You let him stand watch. You defended him when others said he was too soft. And now you're the prize he's shouting for. You hear movement now, boots, rushed but coordinated, coming fast, not crashing through the forest like drunks, but low and smart, like wolves who've done this before. You slip into the undergrowth, slow and silent, ignoring the thorns that catch your arms. You don't run. Not yet. Running would confirm it. Running would make it real. You loop around the hollow's edge, through a thicket of nettles, and stop near a narrow slope you know well. If they're fanning out, this will be their pinch point. You crouch low and listen. More voices now, closer. Steel against steel. Orders muttered, barely audible. They're tightening the net. And still, that first voice calls your name, like bait, like a chant. "He's near! I saw him! He went east!" You don't speak, you don't answer, because you're not answering to that voice anymore. There's no time to mourn the betrayal. That comes later, if it comes at all. Now there's only movement, calculation, escape. You count the routes in your head, weigh the cover, the distance, the likelihood of being seen. One way is flooded, one is watched. One means crawling through briar with your bow strapped to your back and your fingers bloodied again. You choose the briar, because it won't lie to you, because it won't scream your name, because the plants don't care what you are or what they call you. They just cut. You slide into the thorns, low and breathless, and the branches tear at your sleeves, your hair, your pride. Behind you, the voice shouts again, farther off now, fading with each step, still calling, still reaching, still hoping to be heard. But you're done listening. The forest closes around you like a fist, and this time, you don't feel hidden. You feel hunted. Everything is packed quickly. No orders, no shouting, just sounds. Cloth shoved into sacks, the snap of a broken strap, coughing that no one tries to hide. In 20 minutes, the forest is empty again. No coals, no straw, no scraps of food. Even the footprints are brushed away. Almost. You didn't give a command, didn't raise your voice, didn't gather them in a circle. You just stood up, slung your bow over your shoulder, and walked. Without looking back, without counting who followed. This path is carved into your bones now. The curve to the left, the splintered branch to the right, the root that always catches your foot. You've been here before. You just haven't slept here yet. The ones behind you move quieter than usual. No jokes, no arguments. Even the children are silent. Each person walks alone, not because they're tired, but because they don't know what's next. No one speaks about the traitor, or the scream, or the boy you buried with your hands. That's already part of the woods now, part of something large and wet and voiceless. Everyone stares at their own feet. Everyone hopes the one who walked beside them yesterday will still be there tonight. But no one asks. Questions feel too much like weakness now. The new camp isn't a place. It's a compromise between cold and cover, between dryness and safety. Down a slope, tucked between old roots, where moss swallows sound and the trees don't drop leaves. It's cramped, ugly, but no one complains. The fire is built in a hole. The smoke is vented through cracks in stone. Most don't bother setting tents. Everyone knows this won't last. No one expects better anymore. They just move because stopping means death. Or worse, capture. Or worse still, becoming the one who yells your name for a purse of silver. You sit a little apart, watching. Watching little John dress a wound. Watching Marion hand out the last of the stew. Watching a girl warm her hands over an empty bowl, pretending there's still something in it. You don't count them. Don't ask who's gone, who didn't return. Because you already know the number will never go back up. It will only shrink. You're not their hero anymore. You're a necessity. a stone in the mud they hold on to. And if you fall, they'll keep going. Not because they betrayed you, but because they must. You open the sack, and the smell hits first. Not strong, not foul, just wrong. Sweetness that's turned sideways. The last handful of dried apricots you've been saving has bloomed with soft green mold. You shake them, as if that might change something, but the fuzz clings. Even the cloth of the bag seems tainted, damp with the breath of decay. There's no way to cut around it, no fire hot enough to burn it clean. You set the fruit down beside you, but you know no one else will touch it either. It will sit, half visible, a quiet symbol of what's slipping away. You glance toward the meat next, wrapped in waxed cloth and stored beneath a stone, and your stomach tightens before you even open it. The smell is sharper this time, acrid. You've smelled death before, and this isn't it, but it's close. The meat was salted badly, too quickly, with not enough brine, and maybe it was already turning when they packed it. The surface glistens in a way it shouldn't, and the fat has gone translucent. You don't need to taste it to know it won't feed anyone tonight. You wrap it again, tighter, as if that could hold back the truth. Marion walks past behind you, pauses, smells it, says nothing. You both understand. When she leaves, you pour some water from the skin into your palm, thick, cloudy, with specks drifting across the surface like dust. Even the water is failing you. The stream nearby turned brackish after the last storm, and no one has found a safe spot since. You sit still for a long while, not because you're thinking, you're past thinking, but because movement feels pointless. The forest doesn't offer food this late in the year. The rabbits have gone deep. The birds have scattered. Even the roots taste bitter now. You used to know which leaves were safe, which mushrooms held just enough bite to get by. But now you second-guess yourself. You lost a man 2 weeks ago to something that looked like a chestnut but wasn't. He foamed at the mouth and died under a tree, still holding what he thought was dinner. No one forgets that. And yet, no one stops eating either. Hunger makes philosophers of everyone, always asking, what if? What if this one is fine? What if the risk is worth it? What if starving is slower than poison? Around you, people pretend. A woman scrapes the inside of an empty pot, her fingers slick with grease that isn't there. A boy licks a twig, his eyes half closed. You know he's imagining it's sugar. Someone tears off a strip of old leather, chews, spits, chews again. No one complains. That's the part that cuts deepest. No one demands more. No one asks what's next. They just shrink, quietly, like logs burning down to coal. You rise eventually, not because there's a solution, but because sitting still feels too much like dying. You tie the bag of spoiled fruit closed. You bury the meat. You rinse your hands with muddy water. And you wonder, not for the first time, how much longer they'll keep following a man who can't feed them. How much longer you'll follow yourself. She doesn't make a scene. She doesn't raise her voice. She just ties a bundle with shaking fingers, wraps it in her shawl, and stands. You see her from across the camp. She moves like a woman walking towards something that doesn't scare her anymore. The others watch, but no one says a word. Her husband died yesterday, slow and loud, with blood coming out of places that shouldn't bleed. You tried to stop it. So did Marion. But the wound was deep, and he was too far gone the moment the arrow struck. They'd only been with you for 3 weeks, fled from a burned-out farm near Newark, carrying nothing but a mule with a bad leg and a child who didn't speak. The child's gone now, too. Fever, 2 nights ago. Only she remains, and she's done remaining. You approach her quietly, not to stop her, but because you feel like you should. Like leadership demands at least the gesture. She meets your eyes and you almost falter. Not because she's angry, there's no anger left, but because her stare holds nothing. No blame, no expectation. Just the kind of stillness that comes after all the sounds are used up. She's holding a blade, a small kitchen knife worn down to a crescent. She doesn't try to hide it. She doesn't need to. "I won't be a weight," she says. Her voice is flat. You open your mouth and then close it. What would you say? That it's safer here? That the forest will protect her? That grief fades if you just stay long enough? You know none of that is true, and she knows you know. She walks past the fire pit, past the blackened pan with yesterday's ash, past the boy curled in a blanket that isn't his. She leaves the edge of the clearing and doesn't look back. You wait, maybe 10 seconds, maybe more. Then Marion exhales beside you. "You let her go," she says. "It's not an accusation, not really. It's a note, a record, another moment that sits on your shoulders like damp cloth. The others scatter. No one wants to be near the weight of what's just happened." You think of following her, not to stop her, just to make sure she doesn't die in the first hour. But that would only drag it out. She wants to go alone. That's the only thing left she gets to choose. And taking that choice from her would be another kind of theft. You walk back to your own part of the camp and sit. The logs are still damp from last night's rain, and the cold seeps through your coat. The knife she carried flickers in your mind. Not a weapon, a promise. To kill something, if needed. A stranger. Herself. It doesn't matter which. You think of how many have left already. How many said nothing. How many vanished into the trees and never came back. Some were caught. Some starved. Some just couldn't take the waiting. You're leading ghosts now. People who live because they haven't yet decided to stop. And the ones who haven't walked out are the ones waiting for someone else to make that choice first. You rub your eyes. The forest doesn't care. The sheriff doesn't care. And now, you're not even sure you do. The night doesn't come gently. It drops like a net, sudden, damp, and heavy. You're lying half-curled on your side beneath the low flap of hide that pretends to be shelter. Your cloak pulled over your shoulders, your hand resting loosely near the dagger on your belt. The fire has died down to a glow, but the smoke still lingers in your nose. Around you, the camp breathes unevenly. Some snore, some cough. Some just lie still with open eyes pretending it's sleep. You close yours, just for a moment, just to let the weight behind your brow dissolve into the dark. Your bones ache, but the ache is familiar. The kind that tells you you've survived one more day. You tell yourself that's enough, that rest is earned. You almost believe it. And then, the sound. Not leaves, not squirrels, not the wind shifting the treetops. No, this is weight, rhythm, a pattern too even to be chance. 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't sit up, not at first. You just open your eyes, breath held shallow in your throat. Then you press your ear to the earth. The vibration confirms what your instincts already knew. Boots. Not one pair. Several. Marching, but trying not to. Softened on purpose, but trained. You've heard this before. Years ago. In the king's service. The sound of soldiers who want to surprise someone. It doesn't matter who. You're always someone to surprise. You rise in a half-crouch, your knees stiff, your hand tight on the dagger now. Then you nudge the nearest figure beside you. No words, just pressure. They blink. You hold a finger to your lips. Their eyes widen. The camp stirs like a hunted animal. No shouting, no scramble. Just small, efficient motions. A hand reaches for a bow. Another slings a pouch over their shoulder. Someone douses the embers with damp dirt. Marion isn't in sight. You hope she heard too. You hope she's already hidden, or gone. The boots come closer. You can hear fabric brushing branches. Metal clinks, barely. Whoever it is, they're close. North side, maybe 20 paces from the tree line. You signal silently. 2 fingers, a nod. The boy with the scar moves. He disappears behind a boulder. Others follow, fading into brush, shadows of themselves. The routine is muscle deep by now. No one needs instruction. You back away toward the thickets, moving low and slow, your breath shallow but even. The boots stop. Silence. A longer pause than you like. Then, a sharp hiss. A command. Not English. Norman French. You recognize the cadence. The sheriff has new men. A crash breaks the tension. Someone stumbled. One of theirs. Then a shout. Then 3 arrows fly from your side, not yours, and chaos uncoils like a spring. You don't wait. You run, not away but around, circling behind the noise. You know this forest. The way it dips, the roots that snag, the fallen log that looks solid but cracks like thunder if stepped on wrong. You use it all. The screams are short. Your people don't fight to win. They fight to vanish, and vanish they do. Smoke grenades, old cloth soaked in pitch, roll out from nowhere. Someone whistles once, sharply. The second signal, disperse. It's over in less than 2 minutes. When you reach the rendezvous ridge, most are already there. Not everyone, but most. You count without showing it. 2 missing. No, 3. Marion's still not back. But for now, the boots are behind you, and sleep is gone again. You don't light a torch. You don't dare. The glow would betray you more than your footsteps ever could. So you move blind, the bag clutched tight to your shoulder, one hand in front of your face, the other gripping the strap like it's a life. The thorns catch your sleeves, branches whip your skin, roots grab your feet like hands from the underworld. But you don't stop. You can't. Behind you, somewhere, voices still echo. Not loud now, but sharp, searching, spaced like commands. The kind of voices that expect obedience. The kind you've fled from your whole life. Your breath rattles in your throat. You swallow it down, not because it helps, but because you've learned. Noise gets you killed faster than pain. There's no path under your feet, just mud, and old leaves, and panic. The night is heavy, thicker than pitch, colder than smoke. You have no sense of direction now, only instinct. You veer left when the ground dips. You climb when the trees thin. Your shoulder screams where the bowstring cut you earlier. The bag shifts, throws off your balance, but you don't adjust it. You don't slow. Somewhere to the east, there's a stream. You can hear it faintly now, bubbling through rocks, mocking your stumbling pace. You aim toward it, not because you need water, but because water covers sound. You can lose a trail in water. You hope. You're not sure. Everything's become guessing now. Faith and fear. You crash through a patch of nettles. They sting your ankles. You welcome it. Pain keeps you sharp. Pain keeps you from slowing down. At some point, you don't remember exactly when, your foot slips. There's no warning. One step is solid, the next is air. Then impact. Your ribs smash into something unyielding, stone or root or luckless stump, and the world flashes white behind your eyes. You bite down hard enough to taste blood, but you don't cry out. You roll, pushing yourself up with elbows and knees, coughing once, then holding still, listening. Nothing. No chase. Not yet. Maybe they lost you, or maybe they're waiting. You don't know. You never know. You drag yourself upright, lean on a tree, test your weight. The pain's manageable. Bruised, maybe cracked, but not broken. The bag's still there. Still full. Probably. You don't check. You can't afford the seconds. You stagger forward again. Eventually, your legs take over. You stop choosing steps. The body just moves, twitching, swaying, leaning forward like a man praying to the ground. The fear has numbed now, turned into something slower, colder, like resignation with a heartbeat. You think of the others, of who made it, of who didn't, of Marion. You think of food, not real food, not hot bread or meat, but the idea of it, the illusion of safety wrapped in the smell of stew. You know it's foolish. You still think it. Then you hear something. A rustle. To the right. Close. You drop to your knees without thought. Fumble for the knife. Nothing comes. Nothing moves. Maybe an animal. Maybe just wind. Maybe a ghost. You stay there, pressed to the ground, shaking like a wet dog, until your fingers unclench on their own. Then you rise. Slowly, carefully, still moving, still not dead. At some point, you stop walking. You lean your back against a tree and finally breathe, not in relief, but in pause. The bag is still with you. Your hands are filthy. The cold clings to your clothes like a second skin. Around you, the new camp is just trees and shadows. No fire, no signals, just scattered forms, exhausted, wounded, silent, and fewer of them. It takes a few minutes to realize how many are gone. You scan the shapes, counting with your eyes, whispering names into the dark like a priest at a funeral. First, Hugh, not here. Then Tom, no sign. Then little Wren, who never talked much but followed you like a second shadow. You whisper her name twice. Nothing. No footsteps. No cough. Just the wind in the trees and the sound of your own chest tightening. You keep counting. Gareth, the limping one, he might have turned back, or fallen, or worse. You picture the way he held his ribs during the ambush, the way his face stayed too calm, like someone who already knew how it ended. Then there's old Miller, whose son died a week ago. He said nothing this morning, just picked up a broken axe and walked with you. Now he's not here. You feel it before you finish the count. That slow, creeping awareness that the night was not just hard, it was fatal. You whisper again. Names, orders, pleas. Nothing answers. You're not sure if they're dead. You're not sure if they were taken. But what's worse is the space they leave behind. Like holes in a map you can't redraw. 5 missing. Maybe 2 escaped. Maybe. That leaves 3 you'll never see again. You sit down slowly. The ground is damp, but you don't care anymore. You need stillness, even if it bites. Around you, the others begin settling too. No one speaks. Not really. A few nods, a few grunts. But the air is thicker than silence. It's guilt and fear and exhaustion boiled together. You wonder who else noticed, if they're counting too. You glance at faces in the dark. None of them meet your eyes. Maybe they already knew, maybe they always expected it. You didn't. Not like this. Not so suddenly. Not so close. You press your palms to your forehead. You try to remember if you saw them fall, if you missed a sound, if someone screamed and you didn't hear it. The answers don't come. Just images. A flash of fabric. A dropped blade. A voice calling your name before the arrow flew. Then something shifts. You find yourself standing again, without thinking. Looking back toward the forest you just fled, as if the missing might reappear, bloody, limping, apologizing for being late. You know they won't. But still, you look. You call once more, quiet but clear. Still nothing. You feel it then, the slow, grinding truth settling into your bones. You led them. You promised something better, and you brought them here instead. You don't cry. There's no room left for that. Just a long breath through your teeth, a nod to no one, and the quiet reckoning that you'll carry those names, Hugh, Tom, Wren, Gareth, Miller, until your last breath. Maybe longer. You sit again. You count again. This time, not for numbers, just to remember. You sit alone beneath the trees, your back pressed against a damp trunk, the moss cold against your skin. It's night, or close enough. The sky is dark, and the forest has swallowed all color. Around you, the camp has settled into a heavy, dreamless stillness. No one talks anymore. No one asks questions. They eat in silence if they eat at all. You don't feel hunger. Not really. Just a tightness in your gut that isn't about food. Your hands are dirty. Your shoulders ache. Your legs hum with exhaustion. But instead of resting, you reach into your pack. The knife is there, worn but faithful, and next to it, the sharpening stone. You don't need it. Not for a fight, not for game, but your hands move anyway. The blade rests flat on the stone. You pull, slow and steady, one side, then the other. You listen to the rasp of steel on grit, over and over. You're not thinking of anything in particular. That's the point. You just let the motion carry you. The rhythm is all that matters now. Back and forth, scrape and pull. The knife doesn't complain, the stone doesn't judge, and the sound, soft, rough, consistent, drowns out everything else. The missing, the blood, the whispered blame, even the boots you heard in the night. All of it fades under the weight of this one ritual. You feel the tension ease from your jaw, from your hands, from your back. It's not peace, but it's something. You don't know how long you sit there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. You just keep going. You watch the edge brighten in the dim light. Sharp. Too sharp, maybe. But you don't stop. You never do. Someone moves nearby. You hear it. But you don't look. They don't speak either. They know. Everyone knows. You are not a leader now, not a symbol, not even a man with a plan. You're just someone who sits in the dark and sharpens steel, because it's all you can do, because if you stop, the thoughts might catch up, the memories, the faces, the sound the boy made when he fell, the eyes of Marion as she turned away, the cold in your bones that feels permanent now. So you scrape again, and again, and again. It's not preparation. It's not ritual. It's identity. The blade is the one thing you still recognize, the one thing that hasn't changed, that hasn't left, that hasn't lied. It's not comfort, but it's company. Eventually, your fingers grow numb. The blade is honed. You run your thumb along the edge, not enough to cut, but enough to feel it bite. You nod once, not to anyone, but to yourself. Just a silent gesture that says, "I'm still here." Then you tuck the knife back into its place. The stone, too. You don't speak, you don't move. You just sit, in the dark, listening, thinking, not about tomorrow, not even about tonight. Just holding on to the last thing that feels real. A blade, a name, a silence, a shape in the dark that you hope is yours. You close your eyes and you wait. Thank you for staying with us through this long, quiet journey. If your eyes are still open, let them rest now. And if they're already closed, may the silence stretch a little longer and the darkness feel a little softer. Tomorrow, we'll tell another story. But for now, sleep well.